So let's get into compass techniques. Talk about using our compasses. There are several different types of compass. The three that I recommend are here. Oh, come back. So I recommend your typical base plate. A military lensatic is heavy but indestructible, or your base plate with a mirror. I don't recommend anything with watch style. They tend either they won't be accurate, though this one does have an orienting arrow and direction of travel and a reading window, but they typically won't be as durable and typically won't be as accurate for primary navigation. Don't recommend anything that comes on a keychain. For the most part, if they even have azimuths on them at all, they're going to be really hard to use. They don't have orienting arrows. And I don't recommend anything that is electronic. Because for the most part, we can use our cell phones to navigate anyways. They're going to have our electronic compass on it. But you should be carrying a paper map, because your cell phone's not a substitute for that. You should be carrying an actual compass. So anything, those are your redundancy systems. Anything that runs on batteries is no longer becomes your redundant system and shouldn't be your get me out of jail. You're relying on this so you don't have to call search and rescue piece of equipment. And especially for something like this that weighs 2 or 3 ounces, a really cheap piece of insurance. A little bit of an anatomy here. I put some red stars next to certain pieces here because those are the ones that are really important. We're going to pay attention to a lot. It's important to know all of them, but sometimes like your base plate or clinometer, you're not necessarily going to use that as much as the rest of them. So first you have your needle, your north needle, typically going to be painted red. Sometimes it won't be, like on your military lensatic. But on most base plate style, it's going to be painted red. Your direction of travel arrow should align with your index line, and that is the direction you walk in. So once you find your azimuth, you follow your direction of travel arrow. Your base plate, your bezel with the directional scale, this is how you rotate it. You're going to rotate the bezel, and the whole capsule is going to rotate when you do this. The bezel and rotating capsule are kind of the same. They're a little bit different. But so you're going to rotate your bezel to change the numbers underneath your index line. So that is how you're going to set the azimuth you want to go on. Your orienting lines are going to become important when you're you're using a compass to find an azimuth, or if you have your map tool, they become less important. And your orienting arrow is what we also call your red shed. So you're going to hear me say, put the red in the shed a lot. So what that means is you're going to put your red north needle in the red shed of your orienting arrow. And that's how you orient your compass to get the actual direction you want to go to. And then clinometer is for measuring vertical angle. You probably won't use it very often unless you get into like backcountry skiing or mountaineering. A base plate, a mirror compass, has much of the same anatomy. It looks a little different, but it still has your red needle. Your direction of travel arrow, a little bit different. In this case, it's these two lines down here, or you can see there's a nice line that runs up all the way along. They call it the center line, etc., or the notches. There's this nice center line that runs all the way along anyways that you can use for direction of travel. Once again, it's got a base plate. It's got a rotating bezel with a rotating capsule, and it's got a fixed index line that does not rotate. Once again, the orienting arrow, your red shed, is going to look very similar. And then your military lensatic compass is going to be a little bit different. The biggest difference here is the floating dial. So the floating dial, it does not have a red shed. The floating dial has all the azimuth numbers, and I've got another picture here, printed on the dial itself. So when you move, the whole dial rotates, and and you just line up your azimuth with your fixed index line. It still has the whole, everything's in a line, sighting line, loomis dots, etc., that you can use for your direction of travel arrow, but it will not have that orienting arrow to put red in the shed. In this case, you're just going to rotate until the numbers underneath your index line become your preferred azimuth. Okay, let's see if I can get my camera adjusted here, because what I want to do is I want to show you how a compass, I want to show you a few things. I want to show you how your cell phone affects your compass.
Hey, Casey?
Go ahead, Dave.
Can you back up a little bit? You've got some questions there that are pretty basic. Maybe you could go back and cover them before you go on.
Sure, let me pull up the chat window. Okay, so okay, Shelly's, so Morgan, you're not gonna move your azimuth, you're going to rotate your bezel. And I'm gonna let me get my camera going here. And let's see, so I've got a couple of compasses. And so here, I'm gonna do my best hand modeling right now. So I have my compass here, and I'm not moving my azimuth, but as you can see, my needle doesn't change because my needle is always pointed north. So I'm rotating the entire capsule, bezel. Here's my index line. Right here is my index line. So I'm rotating the entire capsule until, say, I wanted to go.
We can't see your camera, Casey. You're still sharing your screen.
Okay, so you may want to, let's see, okay, stop that share. How's that? You may want to
pin, there you are.
You may want to pin my video also so that it doesn't change. So my red arrow is always going to point north. But in order for me to go there, I wanted to, and so now my direction of travel is this way. Let's see if I can rotate my video real quick. Let's do one of those. Okay. Aha, so now my direction of travel is this way. So if I wanted to travel 240 degrees, I would rotate my entire bezel until the numbers are, say, 240. I'm not sure if you can see the 240, but I have 240 dialed on my index line. And now I'm going to rotate the entire compass until I get my red arrow in my red shed. Now my direction of travel line is pointed at 240. Actually, so my electronics are messing it up already. Here's an example of compass care. You want to keep it away from electronics, especially, say, a cell phone. Everybody see how it moves that needle? So electronics will, so that gets into compass care. But this is what I mean by setting your azimuth. And you'll do that either A, you'll have a preset route. We will get into the skill of how you plot a point on your map and pick your own azimuth. But you will know what direction you want to go on your compass. And then you will dial your entire bezel until you get to that direction. And then we're going to go over how you shoot it, but you will be rotating your compass until you get red in the shed. You have red in the shed, your direction of travel arrow is now pointing at that direction, at that azimuth. With the military lensatic, it's a little bit different. I'm not sure if anybody can, let's see if it, come on, autofocus. Maybe. There we go. So the numbers are printed on the rotating dial. So this is my index line right here. So as you move, the numbers move, the entire dial moves. So now you just read the azimuth from underneath the index line. So as I move it, let's see, I'm now, it's facing about 130. So kind of difficult for me to read while I hold it under the camera, but now I'm facing about directly south. My direction, here's my direction of travel line right here. One thing I noticed when I was doing this for mountaineering school is I kind of think, oh no, there we go. Yeah, so your electronics are still going to mess with your compass's needle. So there was, so where am I at in questions? What other questions do we have? Does everybody figure out how to pin video? So it should be in the upper right. If you go to my screen or double click on my image. Yeah, military lensatic is easier, I guess, to read azimuths quickly on it. But other than that, the Suntos have more functionality in terms of using your map to get an azimuth. I'm gonna go back to my slideshow here. So we just covered how electricity and metal objects are going to affect magnetic compasses. You should also take a look at it. Your dials should be floating and moving smoothly, and your glass and crystal parts should not be cracked. And always, always, always keep the compass closed when you are moving or storing. Let's move this. Let's see if I can get my camera back up again. Oh yeah, hey, there we go. Let's change video options around again. So always, always, always close your compass while you're moving or storing it. And there I have a little table of other things that may be affecting your compass and if you should be away from it, how far away you should keep them. Now we're going to cover, so we just covered about how to set your azimuth by doing red in the shed. Now we're going to cover how to actually read it on your compass. So I'll demonstrate first with my Sunto. And I can demonstrate both techniques with this. If you don't have the folding mirror part, then all you're going to use is the center hold technique. But the first thing I'm going to do is I know an azimuth already. So let's say I want, let's pick one. Let's say I want 200. So I'm going to dial my rotating capsule here. I'm dialing it to 200. I have 200 aligned with my index line. So next, I'm taking my hand in an L shape. I'm putting it on one side of the compass. My other hand also in an L shape, other side of the compass. And so now I have two index fingers pointed also. They should be in line with my direction of travel. I'm going to bring it in, lock my elbows into my side, bring it into about your chest level or so. And it should be away from your cell phones, objects. I'm not sure if my smartwatch is going to affect it or not. Now you're going to look down, look at the dial, and you're going to rotate your whole body until you get red, your red arrow, your red north needle, and your red orienting arrow, or you get red in the shed. Now my direction of travel line is pointed 200 degrees. You get that? So if I was starting from over here, I think actually my smartwatch is messing with it. So that's another thing to be considered. So here I am. I've got my L shapes in both hands. Bringing it in, locking it into my chest, and I'm rotating my whole body until I get red in the shed. I'm looking up, picking a recognizable point, and that is 200 degrees. Same thing. If you wanted to pick any other different azimuth, you just rotate your dial until you get that azimuth on your index line. You come back, you're rotating your whole body until you get red in the shed. You're looking up, and off you go. Putting your compass away and storing it, off you go. Same thing with the Lensatic. It's very similar, except for this time, I'm just rotating until the dial underneath moves to the degrees I want. But I've got L shape, L shape. The military Lensatic has a nice thumb hole here. Go through there, so makes it a little bit easier to hold. L shape, into the chest. I'm gonna rotate until I see 200 degrees underneath my index line. Then I'm gonna look up, pick a recognizable landmark. I'm gonna store it, put it in my pocket, and then I'm gonna start walking. Let's see, I see some questions. Or do we have questions? I cannot find the chat window now. Where'd it go? Come back. Oh, well.
Can we ask questions this way, Casey?
Yeah, that works too.
So feeling stupid. Don't you have to keep your compass out? And so you're watching the direction, making sure that you are following the direction that you've chosen, that you're staying red in the shed?
Absolutely not. That is the 100 most guaranteed way you will get lost.
Okay.
You cannot walk. It's like, have you ever tried to walk with your phone out while you're texting or something?
True.
You cannot walk in a straight line while you're looking at your compass. What you can do is you can pick a recognizable landmark that's in a straight line with your direction of travel, and you can go to that landmark. And you can get your compass out again, reshoot an azimuth, pick another recognizable landmark, and go to it.
Okay, thank you.
I do see that as a very common mistake. I do see people try to walk with red in the shed the whole time, and it just does not work. It's a great way to break your compass, and you will walk in circles that way. Center compass to cheek technique. This is more accurate. It's more time consuming. You will typically use this for sighting an unknown object or sighting an object and trying to find out what azimuth is on. You will not typically use this when you're navigating yourself. This is, say I was on one peak in the enchantments and we were having an argument about what the name of the other peak. And so I would pull out my compass and I would do a center hold technique. And I would say that peak is exactly 200 degrees from where we're at. And I would get out my map and I would do my GM conversion, my declination conversion, and I would draw a line and be like, ha, see, I won. But very similar, you're going to bring it up. So on your base plate mirror compass, you're going to use the mirror to read the capsule. So I have it, I preset it. So I have it set, I'm sighting something. Let's see, how's that? How about that? There we go. So I have it set, I'm sighting something, I'm using the mirror to read the capsule, and I'm rotating until I get red in the shed. And I can use the mirror and I see that I'm at 252. I pull it up, yep, 252. So that's where you have your little window here in the base plate. also got a little notch up at the top, and I'm using those notches to sight something very precisely, and I'm adjusting the window up and down until I can read the dial. And then if I need to, I can rotate it as well. I can kind of rotate my dial until I get red in the shed, and that's how I pick my azimuth. Military lensatic, a little bit different. So on military lensatic, you want to get it set up so you have a 90-degree angle here for your sighting wire, because you're going to use the little sighting lens to get it. So this time I'm using my sighting wire, get something really accurate, and I'm using my lens, and because I don't have to move red in the shed, now I'm just looking through the sighting lens at what my index line is reading, so 265-ish. But for the most part, 99% of your dismounted navigation is going to be done using center hold technique. It's faster, it's easy, it's glasses friendly, and it's accurate enough for walking through the woods, which is why at a bare minimum, just the $20 Sunto A10 is all the compass you need. So here's what we went over. I have said compensate for declination. I've underlined that each time. You're gonna hear me say it a lot because it's the #1 mistake that I make personally and that I see a lot of people make, and you need to remember to do it. It's important to turn yourself. I don't necessarily say waist height. I like to do it a little bit higher so that I can read it without having to look all the way down. But and you're just turning until you get red in the shed. And so for a mirror compass, it's the same as a base plate. If you're doing center hold technique, you're using a mirror. Here's a picture of how you can use the mirror to read your rotating capsule when you're sighting. And you're still going to turn until you get red in the shed. And then here's a real good picture of the military style lensatic. You do not need to rotate the dial. All these numbers are printed, and they're all on the same piece of plastic, basically, as the north arrow. So the entire thing rotates, and you just read your azimuth using the red numbers and your fixed index line. You got a fixed index line here, and you can use the sighting lens to magnify that. Following an azimuth is you want to pick a spot and walk to it. Don't walk with your compass out. Put your compass away every time. Hang it on your neck if you need to. You can, if it has a cover, if you have a folding style, close it every time and pick a point that is preferably on the horizon, or at least as far away as you can consistently see. Don't pick a tree unless it is the #1 most recognizable. You could be a movie scene out of like The Hobbit or Pocahontas or something else where they have the scary trees. But don't pick your standard, US forest issue evergreen tree, because no matter how distinct you think it is and how long you look at it, when you're sighting your azimuth, as soon as you put your compass away, you're going to forget it. Guarantee it. So try to pick something that's a little bit more recognizable than a tree. So you're going to pick your spot, start walking to it. I recommend you recheck your compass every 100 meters or so. We're going to cover how to do that in the compass course. I just don't know when the compass course is going to be during the compass course practical exercise. It's based on the amount of steps that you take as how you determine how long 100 meters is. I recommend rechecking every 100 meters And there are certain tendencies people have. One of the tendencies is to drift downhill. So if the downhill is on your right, even though you have your spot, you're walking to it, you have a tendency to drift right. You have a tendency to drift downhill. You have a tendency to drift to your dominant side. So when you are following a compass azimuth, is what we call dead reckoning. When you're following your compass azimuth and you come to like a waist-high bush, most people, their natural tendency is to go around that bush to their dominant side. So whether you're right-handed or left-handed, so it's important to be aware of that so that you can alternate, and that will help you keep on a straight line better. Okay. Compasses. What are your questions? Okay, there is my group chat. Come back. All right. Questions. Okay, I'm scrolling up again. And I would not say it's too old to trust, but I would want to verify it. I would want to verify that it's still going in the same direction. For compass accuracy, plus or minus 3 degrees is about as accurate as you expect your compass. If it's more than 3 degrees off, that's when you would get a new one. Your phones and wearable tech won't necessarily throw the compass off. My smartwatch was messing with it because it was on my wrist. My phone, as long as it's in my pocket and I have my compass over my chest, that's far enough away for it not to affect it. Amy Mattal, I'm not necessarily going off of the backpacking manual. This is actually from the Army Map and Compass manual. I can send that out. I think it's a publicly available document that you can download. And then, yeah, and there are places where you will have a hard time seeing 100 meters. So vegetation might be too thick. This is primarily if you are off the trail. You're not going to be, if you're on the trail where you know where you're at, you're not going to be, shooting an azimuth and walking 100 meters down the trail. And when you're still on the trail and being on rechecking azimuth. This is an example of when you would use it. So if you're hanging your bear bag away from camp, or you crossed a snowfield and you're trying to get back to the trail, that's when you start using this technique. And Laura, yes, I'm going to show you how to calculate declination. We're going to use the acronym LARS for left add, right subtract, and we'll go through it in a couple of practical examples. So Mike, can't speak to your compass exactly, but I'm guessing the 1 to 36 is probably multiples of 10. It's probably 10 degrees to 360 degrees. Some of the outer lines will be from 0 to 64, or 0 to 6400. Those are mils. Do not use mils to navigate. You could, I don't recommend it. They are primarily for artillery fire because they are a little bit more accurate than degrees. A lot of your forward observers will be calling in artillery directions using mils.